Welcome to another episode of 40 Minutes in the Old Testament. 40 Minutes in the Old Testament is a 1517 podcast, network podcast. You can go to 1517.org/podcast and check out all the other podcasts that are living over there. And while you're over there, make sure you check out everything else that 1517 is doing. Hey, head over to the events page. There's still a handful of tickets left for the national event and the regional event. Regional event is in Northwest Arkansas, April 25th and 26th. Come hang out. It's a great time. Chad and I will both be there. Grab tickets for that. Also, you can still grab tickets for the national event. Very few tickets for that left, but there are some, so you can grab those. That is next October. It's a good time. We'd love to see you. Chad, we are in Song of Solomon, chapter 7, and we are going to wrap this thing up today one way or another. That is the plan. We got through the first 5 verses last episode of this chapter, and we ended like sort of in the middle of the groom, gushing about the bride. We haven't seen him maybe go on and on like this yet. So this seems like if you've been sort of tracking with the bride, she's got to be just loving this, because I mean she's said a lot of these kind of things about him, and his responses have been like, "Well, you are gorgeous," or hey, don't worry about it. There's no one like you, like some real, some one-liners and stuff. But he's putting together a long string of compliments here, and we ended sort of right in the middle of that.
Yeah, he's gone full William Shakespeare on her here. He's pulled out the poetry and began with her feet in sandals, worked up to her thighs, navel, belly, breast, eyes, nose, head, and yeah, we left off with him talking about her flowing locks, then in which a king is held captive. So
Yeah.
feet to hair. Yeah, so he's taken in her beauty from head to toe. We talked about last time how when you think about the song in relation to Christ and the church, how every single member of the body of Christ, whether they are at the top or bottom, somewhere in between, whichever part of the body you'd like to think of yourself, then in the eyes of the bridegroom, you're beautiful, you're perfect, you're covered in his righteousness. Now, picking up with verse 6, he's going to shift back. So he worked his way up to her tresses, her flowing locks, and now he's going to work his way back down to one of his favorite parts of the woman's body to talk about, and that is her breast. So let me finish out this section by reading 6 through 9. He says, "How beautiful and pleasant you are, O loved one, with all your delights. Your stature is like a palm tree, and your breasts are like its clusters. I say, I will climb the palm tree and lay hold of its fruit. Oh, may your breast be like clusters of the vine, and the scent of your breath like apples, and your mouth like the best wine." So I don't think I really need to unpack a lot of the imagery that's the climbing the palm tree and laying hold of its fruit here. I think that's probably pretty clear to our listeners. Uh, so yeah, this is picking up just more of so this is a little bit different. This isn't just like describing through various kinds of metaphors what her body is like, even though there's some of that here. But this is uh, almost shifting from the metaphorical to the literal. He basically wants to get his hands on her, is what he's saying. He wants to be intimate with her, to kiss her, to lay hold of her, basically to be her lover as she is his. So we kind of have this uh, continuing theme, not just of her beauty, but of the intimacy between him and her. Now, having that wrapped that up, we're going to shift back to something that she says to him. I almost get the impression that she interrupts him, not in a rude sort of way, but almost like puts her finger to his lips and says, "Okay, I tell you what, this is her. It goes down smoothly for my beloved." She's picking up the image of the wine that he just talked about. Your mouth is like the best wine, and she, as it were, interrupts him and says, "Oh yeah, yeah. In fact, let me tell you, this wine goes down smoothly for my beloved, gliding over lips and teeth. And then I am my beloved's, and his desire is for me," she says. So we've seen multiple times in the song how wine or intoxication or drinking wine is used as an image for basically love or love making. Wants to become intoxicated by her love, wants to drink of her love. And here she says, yeah, you can drink as much as you like. It's going to flow smoothly. It's going to glide over your lips and your teeth. So basically, enjoy yourself with the wine of love that I provide for you. And then she says, "I'm beloved, my beloveds," and she doesn't continue that by saying, "And my beloved is mine." We've had that elsewhere in the song, but instead she picks up a word here, which I don't know how I would translate it. ESV has desire, which I guess is okay, but this is a really strong word. This is the word that is found only 3 times in the Old Testament, and the other two are in Genesis 3 and 4. So back in Genesis 3:16, this is where you have the woman's desire will be for her husband. This is a much debated verse, by the way, back in Genesis 3 as to how you should translate that. Some translate it, her desire will be against her husband. Some translate it, desire will be for her husband, but kind of leaving that aside, that's one occurrence. Genesis 4, the very next chapter, is where God says to Cain that sin's desire is for you. You know, have this kind of beastly image of sin crouching by the door and its desire is for you. So this isn't just kind of a mild desire, but there's some fervency here, an ardent desire that's going on here. And of the 3 occurrences, this is the only one where you have the man. So uh, his desire is for me, she says, just like sin's desire was for Cain, and just like the woman's desire was for her husband back in Genesis chapter 3. So
Isn't that word? It's almost involuntary. Imagine being like obsessed with something and you don't feel like you can control this obsession, right? You're like, I wish I didn't want this thing so much, but I just can't. I can't help it. Like it's not just like a. You know what I would really like right now? I could really go for a milkshake. Like a milkshake sounds good. I kind of desire that. No. This is more like I couldn't shake this if I wanted to. Like this is in me.
yeah, it's almost an irresistible passion for something.
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
the thing that's cool about it, by the way, this 6 through 9, you could tell this is like some young love and stuff. Like if you try to roll this off on your wife, she'd be like, "Stop it!" If you've been married for any amount of time, you couldn't do.
You can get some eye rolls over.
Stop
over
it
this for sure.
But yeah, so he does all that, and it is great because this is something that is awesome, but also maybe like difficult to comprehend. That she's literally saying this, and if you're thinking about this in the context of Christ and the church, forget all the the sort of sexual imagery and all this kind of stuff. When you get down to the root of the matter, it's that you are Christ and his desire, unbridled passion, the thing that he must have is you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is pretty awesome. I'm reminded of I mean, this is different, different languages and stuff, but I think the feeling's the same. There's these times in the New Testament where Jesus says that he must do things. As if he doesn't, like it's not doing it is not an option. And one of my favorite
divine necessity.
Yeah. And one of my favorite instances of that is with Zacchaeus. And when he's in the tree, and then he says, "Hey, Zacchaeus, come down there," and from that tree, and then he says, "I must have supper with you."
Mm-hmm.
Not I would like to come to your house and eat, or but that I have to do this, right? And of course, he goes there, and then Zacchaeus just starts repenting all over the place. Jesus doesn't even preach a sermon or anything. He's just like Jesus, just in his house, and Zacchaeus is falling all over himself. And I get the same kind of thing from this, where you belong to Christ and he must have you.
Yeah. I know we've said this more than once in covering this song, but I'm convinced more and more that there's probably no more powerful a book that presents this unbridled passion, this just irresistible desire and love that Christ has for his church than the Song of Songs. I mean, it's pretty hard to be on par with the descriptions that you have here. And you see it reflected plenty of other places in in Old and New Testament, this driving love that won't stop on the part of God for Israel, Christ for his church. But man, it's here in bold, unmissable in this description,
Well, it might be the
which
case. It
is
might be the case that you could read the Song of Songs, hear all of this sort of stuff, all this unbridled passion, this necessity of Christ having his church, and then all of a sudden, when Jesus shows up to Nicodemus, it says, "God loved the world in this way."
mhm.
You start to understand it, where it's like God, he loves the church, loves his people so much that he was willing to do this. You get the impression in the Song of Psalms that this guy would die for her.
Yeah. And I think it's helpful too because we have this divine love presented in different sorts of ways in the scriptures in terms of like relationships. I think of, as a father has compassion on his children, so the Lord has compassion on those who fear
Mm-hmm.
him. And so you have the just kind of broaden it, not just kind of fatherly, but just we might say parental love for children as one of the ways in which we can try to at least partially imagine the immensity of God's love for us. Now, if you're a mother or father, you know how much you love your kids. Well, there is just a taste, as it were, of how much God loves us. So, from our perspective as parents, that is an insight into the love of God. But also, then, if you're a spouse and you know how much you love your wife and your wife loves you, or your husband loves you and you love your husband, then that gives you an insight too into the divine love. So it's great how the scriptures present this from different perspectives. You have the same thing with friend to friend. I mean, there's all kinds of human relationships that are emblematic of the relationship between God and his people. And of course, in here in song, it's focusing upon two lovers or two spouses. But the scriptures have all these different ways of just trying to get us to open our eyes and see the immensity of divine love that God has for us. And yeah, all of these just are holding us more and more into the orbit of what this love looks like.
Yeah.
All right, so that's through 10. So let me read the 11 through 13. This is going to wrap up chapter 7. Come, my beloved. So this is her talking. Come, my beloved, let us go out into the fields and lodge in the villages. Let us go early. Let's go out early to the vineyards and see whether the vines have budded, whether the grape blossoms have opened, and the pomegranates are in bloom. There I will give you my love. The mandrakes give forth fragrance, and beside our doors are all choice fruits, new as well as old, which I have laid up for you, O my beloved. So, just a couple of things as far as the details go. Depending on which translation you're following, the end of verse 11 is going to say, "Let us go out to the fields and lodge in either the villages or the henna blossoms." Now, you might be saying, "Oh, that's quite a stretch." Doesn't seem to be a matter of just kind of a word choice. Well, that's because you have a homonyms that are going on here. So you got two words that basically spell the same in Hebrew, but they have different meanings. So the word and just the spelling, the simple spelling, could refer to henna blossoms, which there's a pretty strong argument in favor of that because we have had henna blossoms referred to elsewhere in Song of Songs, but it can also mean villages. So either way, they're wanting to kind of go out into the country, whether you translate that villages or kind of in nature, we might say, among these henna
You
blossoms.
know, you
So
know what's
that's
you know
one
what
difference.
one of the things that I think that is reoccurring in this, because when you read something like this, you're like, okay, well, I mean, what's the deal? Like, so he's like, I gotta have you. She's like, oh yeah, I can tell you gotta have me. And then you could easily, and we've had moments like this where she's like, we're gonna go into the chambers or whatever. But a lot of these
Hmm.
other times, it's like I'm gonna be out here in the fields and I'm gonna like be in the villages and stuff. And you're like, what is the deal with that? And one of the things that strikes me as you get towards the end is like there is no desire at all to keep like this love a secret, right?
Mm.
So like this is and not just like in a way that like why would you keep it a secret? I don't mean that like there's something to keep a secret, but what I mean is that almost as though and you see this in the way that there's, whether it's the daughters of Jerusalem or the other people or whatever it is, that there is it seems that there is a belief that it is a benefit to others for this love to be on display, right? So that this love is like a public love. And so you want me, but we're going to go into the villages and we're going to go into these fields and we're going to do, and I'm going to tell other people about this, and then they're going to respond. And it's not just in this, I don't think it's as simple as like, if you are newly madly in love with somebody, of course you're going to talk about them and stuff, and your friends are going to get very, annoyed, and they're going to be like,
about
yeah,
it.
they're like, could you please, like, we get it. Like, could you please talk about something else? There's obviously that component to it, but I also think that there's something about it that says that, no, it's actually a benefit to the world, right? To the people around us, for them to witness this, for them to know about it, because it seems pretty clear that the implication here is that this is the real deal. Right, this is like what it really looks like, and it would be good for you to know what like real love looks like. And I think that of course is the case with Christ and the church, and that we would be doing the same thing, where this is why you would extol, the beauties of Christ and how wonderful he is and all this stuff. The church isn't like necessarily called just to like kind of cluster up and be like, man, isn't Jesus great? And like, well, we love him so much. Here on Sunday morning, we just love him. That's all good. That's maybe going into the quarters. Maybe that's what what it is. But there's also a going into the villages and the fields, where it's like, no, actually the world needs to know about this relationship, and obviously in our context, because they too can be brought into this relationship. But it is kind of a weird thing. It doesn't feel like these people are just spectators. They're participants in it. Almost the way that this is going to be a bad example, but almost the way that, like, if you go to a sporting event, some people have this idea that fans are merely like spectators, but they're not. Like, there's like the reason like the home court advantage or the home field advantage is a thing is because they're a participant in it, and they're like part of what's going on. And I get that impression from the people around and stuff too, that they are involved in this in that way. And I don't know. I think that's an interesting thing from this, that it's not just sort of this. You have both things going on. Like, oh yes, I'm going to come steal you away and sneak up into your house in the middle of the night. But also, we're going to do some very, very public things. And this is also how the life of the church works, where you have your intimate settings within the church, but you also have this call to have this sort of public witness to the world.
Yeah, I was thinking when you were describing that, I was thinking about examples in our culture of how fascinated people get with relationships between people, especially famous people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like they have an investment in this relationship. I think so, yeah, there's a lot of just kind of, base curiosity going on, who's with who, and are they dating? Are they going to get married? All that kind of stuff. But I think beyond that, it's a fascination with love, fascination with either two people that are in a relationship or they're married. And they really kind of become, like you're describing, not just spectators, but fans who are involved in that relationship. And same thing's going on here. Same thing applies broadly, theologically speaking, when you have the church shouting from the rooftops about the love and the beauty of Christ. There's an attractiveness, kind of an almost magnetic attractiveness to that draws people in, making them think, man, I need to figure out more about this. This is a pretty awesome thing that I need to learn more about. Only other thing I'd mention at the end here, verse 13, the mandrakes mandrakes give forth fragrance. If you remember way back in Genesis, you have the mandrakes mentioned between Rachel and Leah. Mandrakes were held in the ancient world to be aphrodisiacs. So kind of that is in the background here, where you have these mandrakes giving forth a fragrance, filling the air, as it were, with love and romance. And here they're pictured as beside the doors, the opening in which they are entering in order to be with each other. I think that's all I got on chapter 7. Anything else?
I think that's it, man. Let's
We gotta
move
keep
on to
moving.
the finale.
we are halfway through 40 minutes, so we gotta wrap this up. All right, we're gonna shift here to something which beginning of chapter 8 might seem a little bit, well,
Yeah, don't
a
try
lot
it.
of stuff in the Song of Songs
If
has
my
been weird, but
dude, if my wife rolled this out on me one morning, I'd be like, "Yo, what?"
yeah. Yeah, this is definitely not you won't find this on any, Valentine's Day cards or anything,
Stacy didn't give you this one for Valentine's Day. She didn't say this to you.
Yeah, and strangely, she did not. I did not open it up and read these words. Chad, oh, that you were like a brother to me, who who nursed at my mother's breast. Yeah, pretty strange to us, but I think we can make sense of it. Even it might still be odd, but I think I can explain it to where it kind of makes sense. So let me just read 1 through 4. Oh, that you were like a brother to me, who nursed at my mother's breast. If I found you outside, I would kiss you, and none would despise me. I would lead you and bring you into the house of my mother, she who used to teach me. I would give you spiced wine to drink, the juice of my pomegranate. His left hand is under my head, and his right hand embraces me. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, that you not stir up or awaken love until it pleases. Okay, so you got to understand what's going on culturally here. So we don't think anything about a boyfriend and a girlfriend or husband and wife kissing in public. I mean, that's, maybe we don't want them like really sloppy kissing, making out, but it's nothing to us if a man kisses his wife or if a girlfriend kisses her boyfriend, but not so in the ancient world. If you kissed in public, then the person that you kissed was a close family member, like sister and brother, or a parent kissing their child. So the reason she says, I wish you were like my brother, is because in public, she can kiss her brother
Yeah,
in
yeah.
this, family affectionate sort of way, like some cultures still do, still this day. We don't really do that in the American culture, but a lot of cultures do. Kiss on the cheek or whatever it might be. So she's saying, I basically, to translate this into our culture, she's saying, I wish that I could make out with you in public, or I wish I could at least kiss you in public, but I can't. I can't display my love for you in this physical sort of way out in public the way that I could if you were my brother. Now, that still might strike us as weird, but it at least explains why she is making this comparison.
Yeah,
So
she understands that it'd be it's this relationship needs to be on public display, man.
yeah, yeah, right. This is she doesn't want to keep anything secret about this.
No.
She wishes that they could walk arm in arm, hand in hand, that they could kiss as much as they want to
Hey,
as they're out in the
just go for it.
public square. But she knows that would, it's not socially acceptable, basically, to do this. So that is the reason you have this, to us, odd expression. Wish you were like a brother to me who nursed in my mother's breast. So and continuing with the same imagery, she said that, if that were the case, I'd take you home. I would lead you and bring you into the house of my mother. I'd make sure that you were with me, and that way we could be together and we could shower affections upon each other inside and outside the house. The mother's referred to as she who used to teach me. There's quite a bit of literature that's behind this, trying to explain this, and most come into let's come to the conclusion that what's being talked about here is that the mother is the teacher in the sense that she's the one who kind of introduces her daughter into how you love your husband. So teaching her not just kind of the birds and the bees, but this is how you are a lover to the man who's going to come into your life. And so this is at least most commentators will lean in that direction. So she'd bring you to the house of her mother, the mother who not only brought her into the world, but also taught her how to be a wife. And then she continues by saying, once I had you here, what would I do? I would give you spiced wine to drink. So wine with spices, which was pretty common in ancient Israel. Not just wine, but spiced wine. Give that to drink. The juice of my pomegranate. I'm guessing there's probably a metaphor that's involved here. She's not going to like just squeeze some pomegranate juice for him and put it in his hand in a glass. This is probably a more sensual, possibly sexual imagery that's being used here, because we have, of course, many times her body is, and parts of our body are used in are described in this metaphorical way by using various fruits to do that. Now, verse 3 is quite literal. His left hand is under my head, and his right hand embraces me. So they are together, uh, not just hand in hand or arm in arm, but with each other in a bodily sort of way. And then she wraps up with something we've seen, I don't know, 3 times maybe in the Song of Songs. This reference to the daughters of Jerusalem, not stirring up or awakening love until it pleases. So don't rush things, don't get in the way. Basically, let us have our time together and don't interrupt us. Let us be with each other as lover and beloved. Then we have verse 5. Who is that coming up from the wilderness, leaning on her beloved? Under the apple tree, I awakened you. There your mother was in labor with you, and there she who bore you was in labor. I, this is more the family imagery. It's kind of a, I can't quite wrap my mind around it, but what seems to be implied here is that first of all we have the image of coming up from the wilderness, leaning her beloved. So it's the idea they're approaching. We've had the image of her coming up from the wilderness before, so they're together, and then we have the apple tree introduced. So they're under the apple tree. She wakes him up and she says, here, your mother was in labor with you, and she who bore you was in labor. What seems to be implied here is there's almost kind of a cyclical nature to this. So your own mother, this could also be translated not just in labor, but conceived. That verb, which is repeated twice, could be translated either conceived or in labor, or even both, maybe is implied here. Like here you were conceived, and here you came into this world. But what seems to be suggested is there's almost a cycle. So here your mother conceived you, she bore you, and here you are now my husband, and here we will be together, and we will perpetuate this conception and birth, bringing forth children into the world. So that's the best that I can make of that, is this idea that as it was for you, so now it is going to be between you and me in this ongoing family, perpetuating relationship.
Yeah, and it's, I don't know, maybe it's hard for us to wrap our minds around it. It's not that hard for me to wrap my mind around it, but depending on like how high of a priority, you know, having more people is to you, the more this makes sense. In other words, hey, the end, as in like part of the goal of this relationship is to produce children, right? And that's what your mother did. And that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, yeah. So she, I think at that point it's going to kind of end a lot of the family images that have been introduced with her brother and her mother, and now in verse 6 and 7, she's going to switch to a little bit different focus. She's going to address him, and she begins this way. She says, set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm. For love is strong as death. Jealousy is fierce as Sheol. ESV has grave, but in Hebrew it's Sheol, which could be a reference to the grave, but literally it's jealousy, or probably better translated passion here. It can mean jealousy, but given the context, I think what's being implied is something like an ardent passion. So passion is fierce as Sheol. Its flashes are flashes of fire, the very flame of the Lord. Many waters cannot quench love, neither can floods drown it. If a man offered for love all the wealth of his house, he would be utterly despised. So begin here with a seal. Of course, in ancient world, you had clay seals that were kind of your way of identifying your property, or if you had a garment, not a garment, but if you had a document that you rolled up and you wanted to seal, you would put soft clay on that and you would roll your seal upon that. And when you did that, it would impress upon that clay seal that belonged to you. You know, maybe would have the Hebrew for, belonging to Chad, belonging to Dan, belonging to whoever. And then that would dry, and that would be the way that you mark something as your official document or your official property. Now, here, what she's saying is, I want you to roll your seal upon my heart. That is to imprint upon my very being the fact that I belong to you and to no one else. And then we have a couple of great lines. Love is strong as death, and jealousy or passion is as fierce as the grave.
You got to just translate this literally. Like you got to go, love as strong as death, passion as fiery as hell. That's what.
Yeah.
That's like
Yeah.
that's
good.
that's what you want. Like you want
That's
you
what you
like
want.
you're going with this passion, fiery as hell. Like just come on, translators, just go all the way with it.
Yeah, because when you do it that way, I mean, you don't even have to really explain it.
Right? No,
Everybody,
it's done.
yeah, yes, it's done. Yeah, and I love the image because first of all, it puts a bit strength because of it's unforgettable. But also, man, when you think about the metaphor in the bigger picture of Scripture with the resurrection and the destruction of death, all because of the love of Christ who gave Himself into death, then it deepens even more in its implications. So, you think death is strong? You think Sheol or the grave or hell is strong? Nothing compared to the love of God. Nothing compared to His passion for us.
Yeah, you
So
could say, you think the grave uh, is strong. Well, you don't know about the love of Christ, and if you think hell is hot, well, you don't know anything about the passion of Christ. Like it burns way hotter than that, and that's pretty good.
it's pretty good. It's pretty good. And then to make it explicit, it goes on with this image of Sheol by saying its flashes are or with the burning passion, we might say. Its flashes are the flashes of fire, the very flame of the Lord. There's a lot of discussion over the translation of the Lord. Hebrew, it's the end of that word is Yah, which is a shortened form of Yahweh. Some take it to be just kind of a superlative, the hottest flame. Pretty strong case can be made, though, that this is the only explicit reference to God or to Yahweh in the entire book of Song of Songs. So we'll go with the very flame of the Lord, which cannot be quenched. Floods can't drown it. In fact, there is nothing in the world worth love. The man offered everything he had for love, he would be utterly despised because people would realize that he is offering that of really no worth in comparison with that which is of inestimable worth, which is this love of the beloved for his lover. We got a few more verses. If we'd have just ended with where we just were,
Yeah,
like verse 7, it'd be like, Amen. But we don't. So this let me do it 8 and 9. This is others speaking, which I think in this case are the brothers, which we heard about already heard about way back in chapter 1. Now they show up again. We have a little sister, they say, and she has no breast. What shall we do for our sister on the day when she is spoken for? If she's a wall, we will build on her a battlement of silver. But if she is a door, we will enclose her with boards of cedar. So a couple things happening here. If these are her brothers, then they're saying they're first of all referring back to her, might say, prepubescent years when they had little sister. Okay, she had not physically developed yet, but now, okay, she's spoken for. She's grown up and she is betrothed to someone. So how are we going to protect her virginity? How are we going to make sure that she saves herself? And they say a couple things. They say, well, first of all, if she's a wall, that is to say, if she is protected from anyone who might want to go too far with her, then we're just going to strengthen that. We're going to build on this wall a battlement of silver. We're going to make her even stronger to protect her. But if she's a door, that is, if she might be tempted to give in to these advances, well, then we'll remedy that. We'll enclose her with boards of cedar. We're going to nail up that door, as it were. So what seems to be implied here is that the brothers are wanting to protect their sister to make sure that she saves herself until the wedding day. And so if she's a wall, if she's strong, they make it even stronger. But if she's not, if she's weak, then they will do what they need to do to strengthen her, to make sure that she's protected until she's ready to enter into this marriage covenant with the groom.
Works for me.
That works for you? Okay. All right. So he I love how she responds though. She she's kind of almost like toying with them, because she picks up their images and takes them a little bit different direction.
She does the, oh, I was a wall.
She says, "Oh yeah, oh, well, I was a wall. Yeah, you're worried about me being a door? No, I was a wall, and let me tell you about my wall. That wall had towers on it." She says, "My breasts were like towers." Uh, so you got these towers which project forth from the wall, and she picks up on that with her breast. So yeah, I was a wall, and that wall had towers on it, 2 towers to be precise. And then she says, "Then I was in his eyes as one who finds peace." Talking here about the one to whom her heart was given. So she welcomed him in. Let's put it that way. He entered into there. She was a wall, but the castle wall opened, the castle door opened, and he came in. She welcomed her lover in peace. Okay. Now, you can't say this in English, but there's a great wordplay here when you go from as one who finds peace, and then verse 11 begins with Solomon, because Solomon's name is a form of the word for peace. So we go from shalom to shlomo, which is the pronunciation of Hebrew of the Hebrew pronunciation of Solomon's name. So Solomon had a vineyard at Baal Hamon. He let out the vineyard to keepers. Each one was to bring for its fruit 1,000 pieces of silver. Whew, that's pretty pricey fruit. And then she says, "My vineyard," and remember that her vineyard has been a metaphor for her love and for her body throughout the Song of Songs. "My vineyard, my very own, is before me. You, O Solomon, may have the 1,000, and the keepers of the fruit 200. So she refers to Solomon as having a literal vineyard at Baal Hamon, and he basically rented it out to these people who were supposed to bring him money for the produce. And she says, "Oh, I've got a vineyard." The vineyard she's talking here is not, of course, a literal vineyard with fruit, but instead her very body that she welcomes Solomon to have. So continuing the same fruit imagery that we've seen multiple places. All right, then wrapping things up. This is the last 2 verses. He says, "O you who dwell in the gardens, with companions listening for your voice, let me hear it." So everybody wants to listen to you. Everyone's listening for your voice. You got companions who want to hear you talk. They want to be around you. And then he says, "Let me hear it. I want to be the one who hears your voice." And she responds by basically saying, "Well, hurry up. Make haste," is the closing line. "Make haste, my beloved, and be like a gazelle or a young stag on the mountains of spices." So you want to hear my voice? You want to enter my vineyard? You want to be inside the castle walls? You want to be mine and have me, and let us enjoy the love and the marriage and the reciprocal union that we desire so fervently? Then hurry up, run like a deer, and come upon the mountains of spices. So enter into this love with me, and let us enjoy that love now and forever. So I mean, I do like the way it ends. The little part in between with the brothers and the wall and the door is a bit strange, but in the end, she's basically saying, in the words of the church, "Come, Lord Jesus."
It does sort of end with a like a "Come, Lord Jesus" thing, which is great, because that's been a reoccurring theme, right? Of you have him, but you don't always have him. It is pretty explicit that this is your beloved, he is yours, you are his, but yet there's still, even though you are together, and this is of course the case with Christ and his church, there's still this also longing to be together. And this seems like these like paradoxical both and kind of things that are going on. But anyone who's been a Christian for any amount of time knows what this is. Like, of course, I have Christ and Christ has me. But I also am like, hey, you should come. The Song of Songs really puts that on display pretty well, I think.
Yeah, back and forth throughout the book. Really, you have this. I want to be together. Now we're together. Now we're not. I want to be together again. So the now and not yet theme is pretty prominent there. And yeah, that's it. I mean, I've coming into this book, looking at it before we actually started it, I didn't quite know what to expect. But I
Yeah.
have to tell you, now that we have finished it, I'm very happy that we did this verse by verse walk through it. I've learned a lot, and more than that, I mean, it just really has opened up my eyes more and more to the prominent theme of that passionate love, not just that Christ has for his church, but that the church has for Christ as well. So it's been a blessing to me.
Hey, man, there's some books that you get excited about, and and then you're like, yeah, that was really good. What is true? What is true is that even the books you're like, we'll see how this goes. Yet another example of, hey, this book is better than I thought it was. There's not been a book yet where I was like, that book was worse than I remember.
No, not a single one. And we that the next book will definitely be incredible because we're about to step foot into a big book, Isaiah.
We're going to be there a while.
We are going to be there for a while. So buckle up. We're in for a long journey through
Hey, man,
Isaiah. But
it's about time. It's about time that we got our prophet on. I mean, we've dealt with some prophets in some narrative form, but we're about to get into the writings of a pretty big capital P prophet here.
Yep, we can jump in with both feet. So join us next time for Isaiah.
All right, man. We'll see you then.